You are a professional for many years now, a successful professional. What qualities are needed, according to you, to be a good fantasy writer? It's a hard question.
What qualities are needed to be a good fantasy writer? Well, I think it helps to love fantasy.
You gotta love what you're writing. That stems to the point. There was a video I've actually reacted to where I forgot who I was reacting to, but the point was that there's been too many writers that write books just because it's trendy or it's popular. Like the genres, they know that they could hit a target audience and it's very popular, but it doesn't connect to them themselves. Like they themselves don't enjoy it fully. So this is actually a very important lesson because there's actually writers out there who write stories and they're not really into the genre or don't really like it at all or much. I should say as much as enough to like write their own story, but the reason why they're writing a story within that genre is so that it can hit a target audience or because they know it's popular. So it's a good way to start, like seriously.
To have a knowledge of the field. But the main part is just to be a good writer.
Is the same thing to write a comic book and fantasy books?
Comic book is a different form, but ultimately it all comes down to story.
Facts. Like the fundamentals is the same. Really, like the fundamentals is as long as you're writing a story, like you're gonna need characters, you're gonna need a setting, you're gonna need some plot, some decision making, some dialogue, like something and there's some things that are just fundamental to most stories.
There are writers who will tell you that these are three completely different fields. That science fiction is here and fantasy is over here, and they're polar opposites and never the twain shall meet. And I don't know where they put horror, somewhere down here or something, but I've never recognized that difference. When I was a kid reading voraciously, I read Robert A. Heinlein, I read H.P. Lovecraft, I read Robert E. Howard, and then later J.R. Tolkien. And some of these would be classified fantasy, and some as horror, and some as science fiction. To me, they were all stories. They were imaginative stories. They were stories that took me to other worlds and other times and other planets or dimensions or what have you.
I'm thinking about right now too is as he talking about these books that he read growing up. We need to just not put these stories in a box like, okay, what type of story this is, what genre this fits into. Just take it for what it is. Like, I think we could limit ourselves when we try to categorize things and put things into boxes. Like, just keep an open mind when you're reading a story. And the main reason why I'm really saying this because literally some people will miss out on great books just because it's a certain genre. They're like, I don't really like science fiction, so nah. I don't really like fantasy, so I don't think this is gonna be a good book for me. But like, you never know. You might be missing out on a great book just because you think it mainly fits in this genre, and that's the reason why you don't want to read that book. No, like give it a shot, give it a try, stay open minded, like especially because these days, like a lot of these books, right? It's not like it's just solely fantasy or solely sci-fi or solely dystopian. Like there's always other genres like mixed in, like subgenres, of course, that you might find intriguing. Like maybe romance is not the main focus in a fantasy book, but the romantic elements in that fantasy book is very, I guess, meaningful, or I should say, it stands out to you, and it actually plays a crucial role in the development of the plot for the story. So, yeah, like give stories a shot, like regardless of the genre. You never know. But heck, even me, I don't really read much horror for the most part. But when it has other elements to it, like romance and thriller, not thriller, I shouldn't say that, like fantasy or sci-fi into it, like other genres that I actually enjoy when it's like mixed in into horror, then yeah, it's a lot easier for me to consume and actually give it a shot or a chance to read. So yeah, just give books a chance to read. Don't put them into boxes and just assume that it's gonna be a book that you're not gonna enjoy and read. Okay?
American publishing has become very rigid in recent decades, and I know writers, younger writers than myself, who are writing science fiction and are writing fantasy, and their publisher says, oh, you cannot write both of these, you must have two different names. And you can write science fiction as Bill Jones, but then you must be Fred Smith when you're writing fantasy, because otherwise you will confuse the readers.
Oh my God, confusing the readers. Like, come on, like, we're not closed-minded. We're not. Like, stop it. We're not. Like, that limits creativity. When you put a limit or a rule, that's what limits creativity. Like, rules limits your options, like what you can do. Creativity is only possible when you're not bound to restrictions, right? Because that's when you create doubt. And that's when you start like overthinking stuff, because you might be thinking one way, but because you're following this rule, this restriction, now you're doubting those ideas that might have been the changing factor, the shift that you needed to have your story become great instead of good. You know, this is probably why Disney can't come up with any new stuff, right? Because they probably have restrictions like this and they can't expand past it. Like, seriously, like, this is a driving point I want to make in this video. Having restrictions causes overthinking and doubts, which ultimately cause limited stories that goes past the standard. We can't go beyond any standard that we already know if we just keep placing more restrictions and limitations for writers. How are we supposed to grow and develop, see what further heights we could reach with a story if we keep these certain beliefs, these limiting beliefs for ourselves as writers? Go beyond, you know what I mean? But seriously though, seriously, the way you think and the way you are, how your belief system works in your brain, it has a huge impact into your creativity and what you could put into your story. Seriously. I'm starting to realize that more and more.
I mean, character is the heart of all stories. I don't care if you're writing science fiction, fantasy, horror, or mainstream story, literary fiction, mystery novel, historical fiction. It's all about the people who inhabit it. It's all about the characters. And there will be many different kinds of characters.
Yeah, that's true. I used to think that it's all about the plot. The plot is what makes a story great. Plot, 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 plot. Like, characters could be mediocre, but if you just put them in a grand slam environment with like crazy scenarios happening all around them, then that could drive the story forward, and that's what matters, and that's what holds the attention and keep the retention of readers, right? I used to think that as well. But yeah, the more I actually started writing myself, characters, man, and the more actually I started reading, honestly, and consuming more is when I learned characters. Characters, characters, characters. It's all about the characters. Readers react to what characters do and what they decide to do, how they feel. Their reactions impact the reader's reactions. You know, it is all about characters. If your character is boring, it's really, really tough to keep a reader's attention. Or, you know, if the reader can't like relate to the character, feel any admiration for the character, maybe they have traits that a reader really likes and enjoys. You know, even hatred. If you don't have full hatred for the character, then heck, that it's hard for you to grab attention from the audience if you don't feel anything for the characters. You know, like the worst possible thing you want your readers to feel is neutral about characters. Like that's really the worst because that's boring. You know, neutral is boring to readers or to people in general. Honestly, you know, like negativity, like having having your readers hate watch your characters is way better than them feeling neutral about your characters. Seriously, seriously. So, yeah, it's characters. It's really, really about the characters and what they do.
And you should be able to have a certain amount of empathy for them. And that's certainly one thing that I've tried very hard to make part of my fiction. Even if you're writing from the viewpoint of someone who's not at all heroic, who's a villain perhaps, or would be considered a villain, he has his motivations, he has his reasons. He doesn't necessarily think he's the villain. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I'm the villain. What evil things can I do today? You know, except possibly the Red Skull, or, you know, in Marvel Comics. But Even the better Marvel villains don't do that. Dr. Doom had his own reasons for doing what he did. Dr. Doom thought he was well justified. But
Thank you.